We're talking to Dr. Al-Hadid, and the topic is Islam and the African-American experience. Of course, Dr. Al-Hadid, let's pick up where we left off the last time during this final segment to allow you to continue our discussion dealing with Islam and the African-American experience.
Okay. Before 1965, I think it's fair to say that if you said Muslim, that would mean that you would be talking about an African American, because there were not a lot of immigrant Muslims inside of the United States, and those that were here were not very visible. I mean, they stayed in their communities and they didn't go very far in terms of spreading Islam inside of America. But today, in 2008, that's not the case. What has happened since immigration policies changed in 1965? You had a great immigration of immigrant Muslims who came here, and now they have had children here. And so if you say indigenous Muslims, not only are you talking about African Americans, but you also might be talking about a Pakistani, an Egyptian, a Syrian. So that is, there are at least 2 or 3 generations of Muslims whose parents might have been born in Pakistan, but their children and grandfather, you know, I mean, the children were born here in the United States. So the Muslim community inside of the United States, which estimates are, we're talking about maybe 10 or 12 million people, look like the entire Muslim world. They are brown, black, yellow, white, and that's another interesting phenomenon too. Now you're having a lot of European Americans who are coming into Islam in very interesting numbers, you know. Primarily you have a lot of females or women who are coming into Islam because they are marrying Muslims from the Muslim world. But you can start to see that there are more whites who are becoming Muslim now. And back in the 1960s, I mean, you wouldn't dream of maybe a white becoming a Muslim because of the rhetoric in terms of them being called, whites being called devils. So quite naturally, that type of interpretation of Islam would not attractive in the whites. But there are a lot of whites who come into Islam, especially young whites, and you have a lot of young white males that are also becoming Muslim. And so Islam now is becoming a very familiar religion to the rest of America. Now, it has always been inside of the African American community, so it was never a strange religion to African American Christians. But now it is becoming even more familiar to white Americans, and they're starting to accept it more. As a matter of fact, we have a mosque in South Nashville on the corner of 12th and Sweetbriar, and there are a lot of whites that live around the mosque, and they're constantly coming up asking questions, and they're you know, they accept us as neighbors, contrary to a lot of things you read in the media and that type of thing. So you have 2 presence and 2 images of Islam. There's the image of Islam and the presence of Islam that people embrace and accept, and then there's the Islam that the media is trying to manufacture because of what's going on, you know, in the Muslim world with the war in Iraq and those kind of things. But Islam is just like any other religion. It's just like Judaism or Christianity or Buddhism. It is a way of life for people. It is a set of beliefs, and Muslims come in all colors, all socioeconomic groups. We have Muslims that are physicians or engineers, college professors, businessmen. And so right now what Muslims are trying to do is to be proud of the fact that they're Americans, and at the same time hold on to their faith.
Now, is that any different from any other immigrant group or any other group?
It's no different from the Hispanics that are coming to the country, or the Vietnamese that are coming to the country. They are trying to do just like the rest of the immigrants that come here. They're trying to take advantage of the opportunities that exist in America, trying to become successful, keep their families together, educate their children, and make a contribution to the United States. You have Muslims now who are going into politics. For example, you know the story of Keith Ellison, the African-American from Minnesota, who was a representative from Minnesota, and who was sworn in. He put his hand on the Quran that owned that was owned by Thomas Jefferson, and so you have you know, you have Muslims who are becoming very visible as judges, as politicians, as mathematicians and educators, and so Muslims are just now trying to embrace the idea that we are Americans. And in the past, you know, the Muslims were separatists.
All right, almost forbidden to embrace the idea of being American.
A lot of that separatist ideology came from, you know, the Nation of Islam for the most part, and to a certain extent from the Moorish Science Temple. But that has changed completely, especially with more immigrant Muslims coming here, and African Americans getting to know the immigrant Muslims more. And as a matter of fact, there are marriages going on between immigrant Muslims and African American Muslims. So the Muslim community is a multi-ethnic community. And to a certain extent, I think it reflects the future face of America, because America, as you know, is becoming less white Anglo-Saxon Protestant in terms of what it looks like physically, and is becoming more brown and more yellow. So there's a browning of America. Texas, for example, is predominantly brown. California is predominantly brown. Florida is becoming that way. And so that's what America is going to look like. And I think with Barack Obama and what he's doing, he's sending a very good message. I think it's very interesting that you could have a Christian, and I believe Obama is a Christian, but with a Muslim name. And at the same time, he can be mainstream and accepted by Americans, to the point where he just recently became the official candidate for the Democratic Party. So I think that with the election going on now and the things that's happening in our society, with the demographics shifting and changing, America now is starting to fulfill Thomas Jefferson's statement that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain innate